It's time for the Pittsburgh Sports Reporters, an inside look at your teams in your city.
Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Reporters. It's Monday, September 9th. I'm David Todd of 970 ESPN and Steelers Radio Network, along with Mike Prisuta, the DVE Morning Show on the Steelers Radio Network, and Mark Madden of 105.9 The X. I don't know that I can remember, guys, a weekend for Pittsburgh sports that was as bad as this past one. Mike, let's kick it off. A Steeler game that was a complete embarrassment offensively. They lose 16-9. They score on the opening kickoff, a safety. They don't score until there's a minute 23 left. And on top of it all, they lose 3 guys on a roster of about 30 key guys where they have no depth. Could it get worse than it was?
Yeah, it could, but not much worse. To me, the most disturbing part of it was not the injuries. It was the way the offense just capitulated losing Marquise Pouncey. I know he's a core guy. He's a leader, particularly with the offensive line. But you got to understand that these things happen. All these guys have been through this before. The players were completely flummoxed. The coaching staff was completely flummoxed. That was a train wreck prior to the 3rd and 1 that Isaac Redmond ended up fumbling into the end zone. And you have to know at that point you've already lost Marquise Pouncey. Opportunities are going to be hard to come by. They got to suck it up and get it together and play better. They're certainly capable of better than that.
Mark, you said from the get-go you didn't think this was a very good football team, although even you thought they'd win yesterday.
Oh, I thought that was a lock.
On a 1 to 10 on the panic meter about how bad this team is, where is it?
Well, I mean, it's just the way I like it. It's about a 10, and that goes for the coaches. I mean, Mike Tomlin was clearly flustered after the game. The players, when they talked, Ike Redmond talked about putting on his hard hat. Ike Redmond shouldn't be in the league. He went to David Bowie State. Mike Tomlin is determined to prove that, hey, I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm right, I can make this guy into a player. Where was Felix Jones? Where was Jarvis Jones?
Great.
Jason Worlds just kept playing. The coaching is incompetent. It's not a very good football team. You ask if it can get worse. Oh, it will get worse. It will get much worse in Cincinnati. And I know what you're all saying out there. They're the Bungles. They're the Bungles. We'll beat the Bungles. Myron's dead, and so are your Steelers.
Mike, let's talk about the coaching, because I think Mike Tomlin made a terrible error late in the game. Maybe wouldn't have made a difference in the outcome, but mismanaged the clock as he does seemingly every other week with the timeout before the 2-minute warning. They didn't challenge the call on the sideline with Sanders. I haven't seen a good look at that one. And to Mark's point, Felix Jones, a guy that you've liked, a guy that they've praised since the day he got here, didn't see the field, didn't carry the ball.
Yeah, I did get a good look at the play with Sanders. He didn't finish the catch. He dropped the ball when he hit the ground.
You got to take it to the ground.
That would have been a lost challenge. The timing thing, I've sort of come to accept that as part of Mike Tomlin's deal, although if Chris Carter gets the onside kick, and he almost did, you got a shot, so I don't think that was a critical issue either. The Felix Jones thing was puzzling to me, although he was partially responsible, I think, for one of the sacks and part of his early action. The running backs did not hold up in pass protection as well as the offensive line, so it was kind of a mess all the way around. The thing that really still bothers me is that not taking a timeout when you don't have the right personnel in the game and the play clock is winding down.
On the Redmond fumble.
A critical 3rd and 1 on the 6-yard line.
The guy can't coach. I mean, we talk every week about
in-game
his flaws.
In-game management.
And we say, well, you just have to learn to live with it. Why do we have to learn to live with that?
I'm with you on that.
He's a rotten coach. Haley's a rotten coach. They're trying to play a brand of football that has stopped existing. They think they can turn back the clock and play Steeler football. They're insane. Thursday night, Baltimore and Denver, that's the way the game is now. The Steelers can't play that way because they put their roster at critical mass. They just don't have the guys to play that way, not to catch up, not to play that way from the get-go. It's a flawed football team from the assembly to the execution.
They're going back. They're going to sign Jonathan Dwyer this morning.
Oh, well,
does it make any difference?
No, does it?
Is he the starting back this week, possibly?
No, I think Isaac Redmond will be the starting back, but it gives you an option. It gives you a warm body, and maybe the light will go on. It hasn't gone on yet. I don't suspect it will, but theoretically that
Mark,
possibility
let me ask you this.
exists.
The defense, if you look at it statistically, the numbers are good. It's the same thing as last year, though. No turnovers, 1 sack. But they did control that game in terms of not letting any big plays from the Titans. Anything encouraging from the defensive side of the ball?
I had no problem with the defense. I thought the defense played pretty well. I thought Troy had a game that had a smattering of his explosions. Not vintage Troy, but certainly decent Troy. But now what's going to happen is Larry Foote's out for the year, so they're going to play scared on defense. Timmons is going to drop back into pass coverage all the time. The front three does nothing. Ziggy Hood is on the
Kiesel
missing
was
list.
good in the first half in particular. I thought Kiesel
yeah,
was
but when
good.
we can pick out one or two guys, that tells you a lot about how the defense as a unit played. It's just a horrible football team, David. And I've said that since the preseason, and it's going to play out in a very embarrassing fashion. Don't forget, this is the game I was sure they would win. They could lose their first four. I think they'll win one, but they could lose their first four.
No question,
and
Mike.
Cincinnati's going to be ugly. Then again, they are tied for first, right, Mike?
They are.
CJ, 25 carries, 70 yards. Did you like what the defense did in the terms of the game plan? The big thing, obviously, was time of possession, not getting off the field on that 3rd and 15, 3rd and 13. Are you taking generally positive vibes on the defensive side?
Generally, but the big problem I had was in the second quarter, and this was before time of possession became an issue. 4th and 1 on what became Tennessee's only touchdown drive. 2 shots at Jackie Battle in the backfield. Larry Foote and Lawrence Timmons.
Yeah.
You got to make that play. I don't care how many points you hold the team to. If it's under 17, which is their goal, only giving up 1 touchdown. You got to make plays when plays are there to be made that can change the game. And particularly now with the offense in the messed up state that it's in, the defense is going to have to rise up and play great. The special teams are going to have to generate some kind of return game, help tilt the field a little bit. Defense didn't do its job. Special teams didn't do their job along with the offense.
Let me ask Mike a question. Mike, do you really feel certain plays could have been made in that game that could have changed it?
Absolutely. I'll give you 2
God,
right off.
no, I
Mark,
just don't see it.
If they don't fumble on 3rd and 1 and score a touchdown there, it's 9-0. That might be too much for Jake Locker.
It might be
right
too much
there.
for Jay Locker.
And
That's
if
a
they
big
stop
difference.
Jackie Battle on 4th down, Tennessee still has a goose egg going into halftime, and it's a different game.
I think the Steelers played so awful that you're right. Plays like that can look pivotal. I think the Steelers were so terrible they find a way to lose that game.
Possible, but I'm with Mike. If you get a quarterback who their goal is to run the ball and possess the ball, and you get them down 9-0 early, it maybe changes how they have to approach the game. They were able to, I hate using
No, I agree with that. I thought when Ponce got hurt and Redmond fumbled the ball away, they just collapsed emotionally. But by the same token, you're not supposed to collapse emotionally.
I think everybody's on the same page there. Pick one other thing in the NFL that came out over the weekend that a highlight, a low light, something that struck you.
Terrell Pryor threw like the best stiff arm I've ever seen a quarterback throw. He was going down the sidelines. He just shrugged the guy off with a bam like that. That's about it. I hate the NFL. I think that's been pretty clear.
Terrell Pryor and Geno Smith, both and E.J. Mann, are all kind of accounted for them reasonably well. Mike, biggest surprise or biggest, most interesting thing yesterday?
The Bears started 2 rookies on their offensive line at right guard and right tackle against Cincinnati, which brings that 4-man pass rush, and it was coming. The Bears allowed 0 sacks and overcame a 21-10 second-half deficit and won the game. It can be done. Play better, coach better, get it done.
And the Steelers next to opponents right there, those 2 teams, interesting game to watch. All right.
Do you think the Steelers have the components to still have a winning season?
I don't think they're the terrible football team you've painted them out to be. I think losing Pouncey is a critical blow, but these things have been overcome before. Yeah, I do.
Well, I think the evidence is in my corner. As always, it'll play out, but I seen writers predict they're going to go 10-6, 11-5. To me, that's just insanity. And I know that was before the Pouncey injury.
It's not insanity. They're
Absolutely, it's insane. Well,
they got a 3rd-place schedule. One of the alleged road games is in London, so it's a road game for the Vikings too. Baltimore did not look good to me on Thursday night. The Ravens have some serious problems. The Bengals absolutely collapsed against the Bears in the second half of the 4th quarter yesterday. Fumbles, penalties, not having the right amount of guys on the field twice. A typical Bengals game. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you got Ben Roethlisberger. You have a championship caliber defense. You have Heath Miller and Le'Veon Bell coming back. Yeah, there's still 15 games to go.
When are they coming back?
Well, hopefully sooner rather than later because they need them both.
I don't buy that for a second. And Ben Roethlisberger, I think, is a top 5 quarterback, but not under the circumstances, not in the corner they've painted him into.
But I'll put that more on the offensive line than Todd Haley right now. I think he was trying to get the ball down the field.
And the receivers, they don't have a single deep threat. They were trying to go deep, and guys just couldn't get open deep.
Those guys are capable of going deep. They got to catch the ball.
Right, exactly.
They got to catch the ball.
Manny Sanders is a scrub.
Well, we'll
see.
They
have a lot of guys they think are players that are scrubs.
All right, Pirates, it couldn't go worse than it's gone for the Pirates. They get blown out by the Brewers in the last game of that. They go to St. Louis. They lose 3 in a kind of embarrassing fashion. It's not the end of the world. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're only a game and a half out, but they get 3 in Texas now. When they come home, the big benefit is they get 11 in a row at home, starting with 4 with San Diego and the Cubs. So they got to get through this 3-game series in Texas. But the pitching, the whole reason they haven't had a 5-game losing streak, the pitching has been consistent. Guys have stepped up. We saw a bad start by Liriano. We saw a bad start by Burnett. and we saw Charlie Morton walk off the mound with an injury. Are they done?
Done's a strong term, but the backbone of their team, which was always the starting pitching all year long, is clearly having trouble. Injury trouble, out of gas trouble, rookie hit the wall trouble. Just the pitching staff, I don't think we can look at as the strength it once was. And I think the mentality of having hit a wall in each of the last 2 seasons, it came later this time, but I really think they've hit that wall again. Can they recover? I don't know. I'd like to think they're made of sterner stuff, and certainly guys like McCutchen, all the new acquisitions are still hitting the ball very well. But I did not like what I saw this weekend in St. Louis. And I would like to blame all of you out there, because when you celebrated 81 wins, you jinxed it. You jinxed it. They're stuck on 81. You jinxed it. It's your fault.
You certainly celebrated prematurely. And
there
Dave,
you go.
The number is 8, the Washington Nationals, for that second wild card. The Nationals open a series at the Mets tonight, and the Pirates open a series at Texas tonight. It's possible, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's possible they could have a 5-game lead on Thursday morning. And if that's the case, the emotional outlook is going to change entirely, and then it's going to be a horse race down the stretch.
That's a fair point. I mean, we saw the Braves get swept this weekend by the Phillies. They're playing for home field advantage. These games matter. The Dodgers got swept by the Reds. The Reds are playing as well as anybody. To me, the National League East is National League Central is a complete toss-up. You got to put the Cardinals in the driver's seat just because they have a 1.5-game lead. But the Pirates are going to get the Reds for 6 of the last 9. They got to get
a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, they're going to have it's an opportunity thing. So they got to get through this Texas series without getting swept.
I see them as the third-place team, one and done. I think their momentum's been broken. And I think one thing you got to consider that Cincinnati and St. Louis, especially St. Louis, are probably just better teams. If you look at them on paper, they're both better teams.
I think we thought that all year long until about 2 weeks ago, when all of a sudden the Pirates are doing everything right and added a couple guys. Now the starters have blown up a little bit. Maybe you got some injuries, but I think that's been the thought coming into the season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's still critical baseball to play, and they've overcome the adversity of injury fantastic all year. They've been able to pick up
the
number of pitchers they've used. But now things are tightening up a little bit. You're not in first place. The Reds are right there with you in second. And, again, the Nationals are creeping. Now it becomes a little bit of an adversity from a team thing. We'll see how they respond to that.
One thing that's really blown up is Francisco Liriano, because there was always the thought that, okay, you get that wild card, you throw Liriano out there, you have a better than even chance to win that game anyway. But the way Liriano's pitched recently, I don't think you could count on that anymore. And I think after the start this team had, the way it played through July 1st, really, I think if it does one and done in the playoffs without a home playoff game, I think that will really take a lot of luster off the season. I think to validate everything that's happened, they need a home playoff game.
No, I disagree with that. My number all year has been 82.
Yeah, we'll see how these next 20 games essentially go, because I think that, as you say, that's a lot of baseball still to be played down the stretch here for the Bucks. Penguins camp opens Wednesday. Wow.
Well, if they start poorly, I'll blame Ben.
All right.
That's going to
wrap things up. Mike Prisuta, the DVE Morning Show. Mark Madden at 105.9 The X, and I'm David Todd at 970 ESPN. Thanks for watching.
And DeCastro.